No matter our race, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, or background, we are all Trojans. Our episode continues with 2 accounts of unfortunate racial stereotyping that members of our Trojan family have been confronted with during their time at USC. From host Andrew Brooks, producer Katie Spears, and editor Amenda Lee, we present Annabelle and Sonia discussing the trials and tribulations of being Trojans. This is Mishandling DEI.
In 2019, in the aftermath of the university's college admission scandal, USC students, faculty, staff, and alumni were surveyed to identify shared values among the Trojan community. 8 major values were selected and advertised as part of USC's new vision. Among these values was diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. This illustrated the fact that USC sought to reanalyze representation on campus. While it appears the university has made several changes in an attempt to include DEI as a value, their actions have been reactive rather than proactive. This results in ineffective solutions for unfixed problems that further perpetuate stereotypes against marginalized groups at USC. Changes took place in 2020. After the Black Lives Matter protest against police brutality and the murder of George Floyd rose nationwide, USC's DEI efforts were recontextualized. President Carol Foltz concluded that changes were necessary, writing in an email distributed to the student body that, quote, "It means listening to our Black students, faculty, staff, and neighbors, and admitting that we have been blind to and actively ignored what is happening to them," end quote. USC made changes, specifically to create a more comfortable and inclusive environment for its Black student body. But how effective were those changes? We spoke to Annabelle, an African-American student at the university, on her experience in a new diversity class at the film school at USC.
They've introduced a lot of diversity classes, which I think is good, the actual concept of doing that. I think it's more about the implementation that is the issue. I think it's a way you can open up like a lot of people's viewpoints and a lot of people's perspectives, and you get to see it through the lens of media. So we were watching movies every week and talking about the people represented in them and looking at where they were coming from, the producing of the actual movie, and the crew and all that kind of stuff. So that class was interesting in the way that, and so our teacher was a white guy. The selections of the movies were very missing the point. Like, The Greatest Showman was on there. And of course the students caused the scene and they said, we need different movies. And we changed the movies, and he was like, you guys are allowed to curate your list of movies that you want to study if it fits these specific like modules that we're going to go over, which I thought was great. And after the changing of movies, all the movies we watched were amazing, and I loved them. The actual content of the class, though, was very lacking. I mean, you know, we would do a Black movie and it'd be like, racism is bad. And then next. Like, not a lot of the other exploration and nothing deep. More like copy-paste of a Wikipedia page, and that was what we were getting.
The students spoke up, and the list of movies was changed. However, it is problematic that this class was not reviewed prior to being taught. It seems as if the class was not meant to truly discuss diversity, but was merely a facade. In the next story, Annabelle discusses an occurrence in one of her Zoom classes in the fall of 2020 during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement.
The professor had a presentation where we were talking about documentary. And like, this was very like early, this is freshman like kind of work. And she goes through the slides and she goes from like Eskimos, seals, or like city streets of New York, and then she flashes a picture of George Floyd and then moves on to like orcas and then goes to other pictures. This was like a Greek tragedy in the way that, you know, when you can share your screen and you can't see the chat and you can't see people's faces, that professor couldn't see what was going on. A couple students started crying. She did not address the picture at all. So she, like, someone unmutes themselves and is like, professor, there's a lot of students are concerned in the chat, and then she exits the presentation. She sees it. She sees people crying, and she sees people blowing up the chat, calling her mean names, but also saying, how could you do that? That's insane. Why would you not address that? And it was like insanity. I think she handled the situation fairly well in the way that she profusely apologized. She told people that we would stop class right there. She would talk to her TAs about how to move forward with this situation. She sent a formal apology in an email later. She even turned herself into the diversity people. She wrote a report about herself and turned it in. I mean, a lot of people were really upset and saying that she needed to do more. And my whole thing was, one, she had no idea that she did that. She understood what was going on, that she can't simply and when I mean George Floyd, I mean the picture of the police officer standing on his neck. She understood the situation. I think she handled the situation as well as possible. But it does make you think in the way that I wonder if someone with a different background or someone that had a lot more social awareness would even make this mistake. Because obviously the recoup that she did was as much as you can do, right? But the fact that it happened in the first place is the issue, not whether she did enough.
It is undeniable that despite the university's efforts, there are still fundamental problems with the way diversity, equity, and inclusion are handled at USC. These issues are structural, institutionalized problems, not just a handful of misguided professors. Annabelle and Sonia, a Chinese Indian American in her third year at USC, share examples of these deeply ingrained problems within the university. First, Annabelle discusses her film professor's reaction to her work in her film classes.
So I'm taking a class right now, 310, and we're supposed to make our own movies, and we direct our own films, and we write the films that we direct. And I feel like my professors are very receptive to certain kinds of movies. My dad is from West Africa, and my mom is from the East Coast. And so I think my identity is very intertwined with West African culture and Black culture. And I wrote a script that kind of reflected the two sides of my life. And I think my professors were very non-receptive to my script. And I've been having to fight this whole time to get a version of the script that I want to show that I wrote with my dad. I guess every meeting, every green light meeting that we go through, I'm reminded that my script is not like the others by the feedback that I get. But when a professor kind of says, this story doesn't make very much sense, or what's the symbolism of this element? Like, for example, in my movie, there's red meat. It's a very abstract movie. In West African culture, red meat in a bad dream means evil is coming. So I wanted to have West Africans that watch it look at it, and if they see the red meat, they're like, oh my God, this is a bad dream. But they didn't get that. And when I explained that to them, that didn't make it better. Like, one of the criticisms I've gotten is that my script isn't very accessible. And that you're not making this just for you, right? And so I'm just like, well, obviously not, but I'm making this because I want to make it. And I think I'm a fairly understanding person when it comes to feedback and understanding where people are coming from, especially when it comes to changing a script, because obviously you're trying to make the best version of the script that it can be. But when it's about the core elements that build the story, how are you supposed to change that? That's not a structure issue. That's not a character situation. That's someone that isn't really open to seeing another facet. I think I've had a lot of emotional turmoil about it, to be totally honest. I don't know, the other day I was on the phone with my mom and I was just I can't take it anymore because I can't do another meeting where they're just I don't understand. And my mom is like, well, you can either change your script entirely, make something that they like, or you can just fight through it because you want to do the script. And I've had other friends and other classmates come up to me and say, hey, I've been thinking of making a script that's like ingrained in my culture, but based on the feedback that you're getting, I kind of just want to make a script that's easy so I can just go by and not have any issues. And the fact that people are talking like that is kind of upsetting.
Annabelle's story illuminates that ideas from minority students are filtered out of the film school. This is proving to be a structural issue within the university. Sonia is on the pre-med track, and despite having mostly Asian peers, her classes are taught primarily by white professors.
When you have a white professor teaching a class and all of the students are Asian, it still gives so much power to white people in general and kind of has this implicit undertone that Asian people can go into STEM and are allowed to kind of pursue these careers because white people are letting them do that. You are allowed to help me do things, but I'm going to be primary author of this journal and I'm going to teach this class and I'm going to be the department chair, but you could be associate professor of teaching.
These issues at USC have compounding effects. Having primarily white professors teaching students from diverse backgrounds implicitly tells these students that leadership positions in the field are not for them. This structural exclusivity doesn't stop at faculty, but bleeds into all other areas of the university as well, from career opportunities to one-on-one interactions between students. Annabelle discusses her experience applying for a job through the university.
I reached out about an opportunity within this school of production. And I had been doing the same things as two of my other classmates. And I had been reaching out, being very vocal about wanting like an opportunity, and just I've been cutting things that are very small, short films, and I'm like, I'm ready to throw myself out there. I'm ready. I want it so bad. And I was overlooked for an opportunity, a really big one that I really wanted. And at first I was thinking to myself that like, maybe I'm just not as good as an editor. But I noticed that my two counterparts were two white women. When you're a person of color, it's this weird balance where you're like, is it racism or is it I'm just not good, Or it just was a numbers game and I'm just not let in on the joke. But then your brain goes, but is it racism? And then you kind of go like, I don't know. And you're struggling between that. And I watched my classmates and who are my friends blossom in that opportunity and make a shit ton of money. And I was like telling my mom, I was like, I should go up to the person and say, why didn't I get the opportunity? What was wrong? Do I need to work on it? Do you need to see my portfolio? I could practice. And then my mom was like, maybe you should like look into it, but do you really want to know the answer? And so I don't know. Obviously, I could be conflating all of this. And maybe I'm gaslighting myself right now, just going like, it's not racism, it's not racism. And I never know what it is. And I'm honestly being cowardly right now because I could just walk up to them and say, why didn't I get the job? But I don't know. After my mom said that, I don't really want to know the answer. And maybe that person doesn't know the answer either. And I wonder how many times in my life this has happened. And how many times that I've been just overlooked because of a secret reason that I don't know about. And that makes me really upset because I'm trying really, really hard. And if I need to improve on something, just let me know because I have the work ethic. But to get overlooked like that when I kind of needed the money this summer, that was really messed up.
What is the truth behind the situation? Is it an unfortunate coincidence, or is it something else? In the next segment, Sonia discusses an occurrence that happened outside of class with fellow students at USC and the microaggressions she faced.
We were going to a concert, and my friend knew a couple guys that invited us over to kind of pregame before the concert. I didn't think too much of it. I was just kind of like, oh, whatever. We go, and it was me, her, the guy that she knew, his other Newport bestie, another white guy, and like some white girl. And it was just very interesting hearing stories from my friend about how this guy is super flirtatious, super touchy, and not receiving that at all, but seeing that happen with the white girl that was there and seeing that happen with my friend. And it was super interesting because I just felt like he didn't even make eye contact with me. And, it's kind of weird just walking away from these experiences and again thinking like, what could this attribute to? Like, is this because I just met him and it's a product of kind of like a first interaction? Or is it because, again, like I'm not viewed as a woman in the dating pool? I'm just viewed as like a sexless blob there to drink his alcohol. The only time he would talk to me is like just to say like commands, like, oh, can you move this? Can you do this? And then he wouldn't use my actual name. He would use like some kind of pun or a joke on my name, which would be totally fine under normal circumstances. But like the fact that that's our only interactions and you are consistently addressing me by not my real name, it just makes me feel extremely disrespected. Like, I would like someone to say my real name if they want to get my attention. The name he was calling me was a reference based off of one of my other friends who is of a similar identity as me. So again, internally grouping us together just because we're both Asian. I mean, she's one of my best friends, but we're not the same person.
Neglecting diversity, equity, and inclusion sends a message to USC students that they can do the same. If the faculty and the university are not making real efforts, why would the students? And knowing this, what changes should USC make?
I think USC needs to do a better job of recognizing organizations that are doing good work, as well as giving these organizations more funding and giving them, if they have a faculty advisor, I guess just giving like authority and power and kind of credibility to these organizations and making them seem like they are part of the institution and part of USC culture just as much as how permanent Greek life seems.
Like, the whole point is to celebrate diversity and encourage inclusion, right? And I feel like there's the whole point of celebrating diversity, but none of the inclusion. So the diversity doesn't really come through. I think that emphasis on inclusion, which I'm glad that USC kind of is starting to get to, is really important, because it's one thing to have tokenized diversity, but it's another thing to make your diversity kids feel like they are actual kids that go to this institution and less like fodder to enrich everyone else's cultural experience.
So what will USC do? Will they own up to their mistakes, dismantle the structural issues within the university, and truly make the Trojan community an inclusive place?